Oh, let's put myself on the screen. There we go. Good morning and welcome to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. We're a couple of moments late this morning due to a PC crash, predictably, just as I was trying to log into the system this morning. And we seem to have frozen. Hopefully, everything will go smoothly after that. We've got Clive looking in, saying good morning, and we've got Nick as well, both saying good morning. So welcome to the second show of a new year, and what have we got for you today? Well, just a quick reminder about tonight's live webcast, which is on filtering, and then some news today. Police stop a Wiltshire woman who has had no driving license since 1983. Traffic controls in Bath, designed to make air quality improvements, actually made air quality worse. Tesla have turned off their passenger play feature, which was said to be distracting drivers after a US investigation. I mentioned the synthetic kite string, the Chinese manja it's known as, on the last show, the roundup of 2001, and we'll have a quick story on the frightening toll that's exacting on riders in India. The government have announced that all new homes from this year will have to have EV charging points built in, but they've quietly dropped the requirement for charge points to be fitted to existing business car parks. Livewire have revealed plans for a new electric drivetrain platform, and I'll talk about very briefly about a rider's deja vu moment, which he had after watching one of my 60-second safety videos. And plus, we'll finish off by having a quick look forward to plans for 2022. And Paul has also looked in and said good morning, and things are frozen again. Right, hopefully we're not going to have lots of freezes today. That would be very irritating if we do. So, right, okay, on with the show. All right, so I'll just remind you first of all, tonight I'm hosting January's live online webcast on filtering. Now, riding a motorcycle between other vehicles is always a hot topic, and if you go online, you'll find a mix of some good advice and some seriously poor advice. And I'll be asking if it's a science or an art, or whether you need balls or brains to filter. You can also find out what's legal, what's illegal, and what's just plain common sense, based on my own courier experience. So that's tonight. That's at 8 o'clock. January the 5th, and the tickets are still available, and if you want to book yourself a seat, you can get one here. I'll be checking up to about 6 o'clock tonight and sending tickets out, so do try and get in before 6 if you can. February's event, by the way, will be Science of Being Seen again, but I'm going to do something a little bit different this year. I'm going to alternate the regular Science of Being Seen presentation, which looks at all the issues in one presentation, with some special in-depth events. And this particular one, what I'll be doing is I'll be looking at how the human eye detects objects in the visual field, and it's really not as straightforward as look and see. If you have already seen the full-length version of SOBS, I do recommend that you watch this. It will hopefully give you some additional insights into the Smidsey collision, and also help you understand why it is that bikers often don't see the car that's about to put them at risk. So, right, okay. So that's tonight's event, is the filtering one. So do come and have a look at that if you're interested. There's the picture that I meant to put up earlier, showing you a typical filtering hazard. And I'll be talking about that particular risk as well as many others this evening. So do come over and join me for that if you have some time. All right, okay. On with the news. The first two items are quite an interesting one. Traffic police in Wiltshire were apparently making routine checks when they pulled over a 55-year-old woman who had been driving since 1983. There was just one problem. She had never actually held a full license. she told the police that she learnt to drive as a schoolgirl when she was 17 years old, but never actually took a test. Having called a recovery lorry to impound her car, she was told to arrange a lift or to walk home. Um, it's an interesting question, isn't it, really? What does she actually constitute a danger to other road users? Well, presumably, assuming she's not been pinballing off passing vehicles since 1983, the answer would probably be no. The idea of the test obviously is to take a novice driver to a particular standard where they are considered to be reasonably safe, both to themselves and to other road users. But of course, we all build experience on that. And, frankly, if she's got nearly 40 years driving experience, I suggest that she probably wasn't much of a risk on the road. Nevertheless, there are formalities. The license is there for a reason. And yes, she shouldn't have been driving without a license. But some of the knee-jerk responses about how dangerous probably don't hold any water when you look into them in a little bit more depth. Okay, so don't forget you are watching Elevenses. If you have comments or questions, anything to say about anything I talk about, do drop me a line. I'm always happy to see what people will say. I will try to get back to you during the show. If I can't, I will certainly get back to you at the end of it. All feedback, all comments, all suggestions for topics to be discussed are welcome. Over in Bath, one of the loveliest cities in the country in some ways, but also one of the most congested on my, it was always a place I hated going when I was dispatch riding. Deputy Council leader Richard Samuel accused the former Conservative administration of being so desperate to avoid charging cars to come into a clean air zone that they installed what he called bonkers new traffic lights. Councillor Samuel told a cabinet meeting last month that the inevitable consequence of the plan to improve traffic flow in the heavily polluted Gay Street by installing traffic signals in Queen Square was to cause congestion in adjacent streets. Now, figures for the first 6 months that this new low emission zone had been created showed that the adjacent Chapel Row had become the most polluted street in Bath, and the amount of nitrogen dioxide had actually increased by a fifth to an illegal level. And Councillor Samuel said, "I believe it was a deliberate attempt by the Conservative administration to disperse pollution into residential areas so they should get the numbers under the level at the pinch point where it exceeded the legal limit. It was an attempt to massage the figures to achieve a Class C clean air zone that did not charge cars, when all the data showed that it was probably not the correct course of action." The previous Conservative administration approved plans for lights in Queen Square, and they were implemented by the current Liberal Democrat cabinet. So that's an interesting one, really, isn't it? Because this is the problem. If you deflect cars from one particular zone, you may reduce the number of journeys that people are making, but the chances are that some of those journeys will be made on alternative routes. Now, if you recall, have any experience at all of the first low emission zone in London and congestion charge going in, which basically sealed off sort of the area south of the inner ring road and sort of to the east of Park Lane and so on. The West End and the city, essentially. The effect was immediately to divert traffic onto the roads which ran just outside that particular loop, which was basically sort of the Euston Road and Park Lane, for example. So the traffic actually got much heavier on those roads, and I'm absolutely certain that the pollution got worse too, because as the traffic stops flowing, drivers are sitting there with engines idling, and the inevitable result is more pollution. So the idea that you move traffic from one place to another just simply moves the pollution. It may spread it out more evenly, but it may not. And in this case, in Bath, it seems to have simply created another sort of pollution hotspot. So a depressing approach, really, to the problem of monitoring and maintaining clean air. Don't forget, you can catch up with this show. Generally goes out live on Wednesdays and Sundays. I missed Sunday earlier the weekend due to a slight cock up on my part. I've actually forgot to take the laptop with me. But normally it's Wednesdays and Sundays, and it's nearly always live. So set yourself a reminder for 11 o'clock on those days. We've got a comment here. Paul has just said good morning, and he's booked a ticket to my filtering show. Excellent. I will get you your login details out later this morning, Paul. Thank you. Right. Okay. So the next item that I have concerns, guess who? It's Tesla again. You may recall just before Christmas that they activated a feature in their car called Passenger Play. Now, the touchscreen, which is built into most of the recent all the recent Teslas, allows you to play games on it. But formerly, it had been locked out while the car was actually in motion. And what Tesla did was they changed the lockout via a software update to their car, which allowed the passenger to play. Now, yes, there were warnings to say, don't play, the driver shouldn't play, and that this could be distracting to the driver. But essentially, it meant in the more or less in the sort of, if not in the line of sight, in peripheral vision, things were going on in front of the driver. And not too surprisingly, Tesla came to face some criticism from Tesla users that the feature was dangerous, and an investigation was actually launched by the US National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the NHTSA. Now, its guidelines state that in-car devices have to be disengaged so that they cannot be used by the driver, quote, to perform inherently distracting secondary tasks whilst driving, unquote. The NHTSA noted that the feature may distract the driver and increase the risk of a crash. Now, as a standard practice, Tesla has not issued any formal statement on the matter to the press, but the New York Times this week reported that Tesla had contacted the NHTSA directly to say that a software update would disable the feature once more whilst driving. Passenger play will now be locked and unusable when the vehicle is in motion, the NHTSA told the paper. So, in the second of the two 2001 Roundup shows, I did mention the threat to riders in India from synthetic kite string. Now, many people in the Punjab and Lahore see kite flying as a part of a centuries-old cultural festivity. The sport's highly popular in Lahore, but the synthetic cords that are being increasingly used are both very thin, which makes them hard to see, and they're also very strong. And when they end up falling across roads, it means they are actually deadly to the motorcycling population. And in 2021, the strings actually claimed 5 lives and left 15 people injured, despite the government's zero tolerance policy and a ban imposed on this particular kite string over a decade ago. Now, just to show you how widespread the problem is, the police have gone to considerable lengths, I discovered, whilst reading a bit more about this problem, to catch violators, not just raiding and seizing illegal materials from the kite salesmen themselves, but even manning rooftops in densely populated areas and actually using drones to hunt individuals flying illegal kites. Punjab police claimed registration of no less than 17,053 cases under the Illegal Kite Flying Act, 17,882 arrests, and the seizure of, wait for this, 1.38 million kites and 64,314 rolls of kite string during the year. And that included 10,000 cases and 10,000 arrests in Lahore alone. So you can see the scale of the problem. The obvious solution, really, I suppose, would be to intercept the stuff as it comes into the country. But hey ho. There have been accusations raised at the police that some of the seized material was then sold back into the market rather than being destroyed. And the truth of that, I have absolutely no idea. Right, so the government is seeking to bring in improved charging infrastructure into the UK. And one of the ways they're going to do that is to require all new homes built from this year onwards to have electric vehicle charging points installed as the new home is built. But just before Christmas, it turns out that they actually quietly U-turned on their plans to require every office and shop in England to install electric chargers if they have a large car park. Precisely how a large car park is defined, I don't know. But the Department for Transport, DfT, has now admitted that it will only ask for chargers to be installed in new or refurbished commercial buildings. And this is reportedly due to fears that the cost of installing the chargers will be too high for some businesses. Now, not surprisingly, some industry experts believe that the EV charger access will lag behind demand for electric cars. Right now, there are 48,000 public charging points available in 18,000 locations, which sounds a lot until you begin to count the number of electric cars on the road. And then you realize it's actually way short of what's needed. There are now I've seen queues forming at electric charging points. It's well behind what many other European countries, Germany, France, and the Netherlands, for example, all have many more points installed already. And the number of charging points needed will rise as the number of cars rise. And of course, they will be installed at places of work, in shopping and at transport hubs. But to be honest, the fact is the house building target will make a negligible dent in the number required, simply because the vast majority of housing stock is pre-existing. It's not being built anew; it exists already. It means approximately 145,000 charging points per year will go in with new houses. And if you recall, the ban on cars and vans comes in 2030, and for motorcycles 2035. That's for petrol engines and diesel engine ones, of course. How much is a charging point? Well, it can be installed for under £1,000. It does depend on the amount of work that is required. If you're going to dig up lots of tarmac, it'll cost rather more than if you're just running it out the front door to a charging point on the wall. But it'll also depend on the output of the charger itself too. But you know, even with the relatively low costs like that, it's hard to see how a lot of businesses couldn't afford that, even for a fairly small car park. If you've got half a dozen cars, it's not a huge outlay for a business. The big problem is that for many of us, of course, there is no real option to installing a home charging point. I'm not sure how I am supposed to run a charging point to the roadside here, given that I have no off-street parking. Don't forget, if you enjoy the show, you can consider coming over to my Ko-fi page and making some support over there for me. I'll be talking a little bit more about my plans for Ko-fi at the end of the show. Livewire. That's the Harley sub-brand, which has been officially spun off from the petrol engine Harley Davidson brand to encompass their new electric motorcycles. They linked up, you may recall, with Kymco, and they're now gearing up to add some new models to their lineup. Now, the recent presentation to investors, let me just get the picture up on screen if I can find it. That's the wrong picture. This is the right picture. Here we go. The investors were shown plans to launch 3 new EVs with the current catchy names of S2, S3 and S4, and they're apparently aimed at the global market. Now, the bikes will use the platform strategy. That's something we've increasingly seen from bike manufacturers. The Honda NC range is the classic example at the moment. What they'll do is they'll share a common sort of chassis, and the scalable arrow drive system architecture, which you can see there in the render. It's doing the rounds of websites. It's effectively the battery box that you can see in the middle, which holds the swing arm and the headstock at either end, is a structural part of the bike and basically forms a sort of monocoque chassis. And the battery itself will pop somewhere into that battery box. The electric control box sits at the front, and the motor is tucked in below and behind the battery pack, adjacent to the swing and arm. Now, the bike will come with different battery capacities, and there'll also be different voltages apparently, presumably because you can change the power output easily by altering the voltage output. And the bikes will either have air or liquid cooling. You can see a little radiator on the front of that one if you look closely behind the front wheel. Now, the S2 could be a production version of a flat track concept bike, which has been seen already, and there's speculation it could be called the S2 Del Mar. The S3 is likely to be a lower price model using the Kymco Iron X swappable battery system. So presumably that battery box has some access to it. The S4 has been categorized as a heavyweight motorcycle with improved range and charging capacity, which will be fitted with the latest technology system, but there's no further word on that one. Now, just as a sort of an amusing aside, I saw a rather hopeful tweet from Kawasaki UK on Boxing Day, which asked, "Want to know why the Versys 1000 has established a place in the heart of so many riders in recent years?" And they went on to say, for 2022, riders can choose from 3 versions: the Standard, the S, and the SE, ensuring there's an option for everyone. And actually, I'd love to know why it's close to the heart of any riders at all, because the fact is, I can't even remember the last time I saw one of those bikes. Now, something I've been working on over the last year and a bit is my 60-second safety series. And I'll just put a link up to a video so you can go and watch this video at your leisure. Essentially, the 60-second video series are either shot directly from my own motorcycle of the scene in front of me. Sometimes it includes the trainee. More often than not, it's just me riding, either demonstrating a bit of riding to the trainee behind me or solo, just having a fun day out on the bike. Very occasionally, somebody submits a piece of video footage for me, and it's good enough to, or has an issue on it, which I think is useful to share. So the 60-second safety videos basically designed to be very quick to watch. They make one single point, and they attempt to make it in a way which is easy to understand. And if you watch the video, which I've just linked to, you'll find that it's a stretch of road which I used for one of my training sessions. I was actually ahead of the trainee as we went through this bit, and I was talking her through what I was seeing. And basically what it shows is some road signs which flag up some junctions. And if you watch it all the way through to the end, you'll see that there was a near Smidsy as a driver actually pulled out in front of me. Let's take that picture of the live wire off the screen. I'd forgotten that was still up there. So a couple of days after it went up, I got a message from somebody who said, "I've watched this video several times and thought I know that road. I was out today, and yes, I was riding the same road. So what happened?" Well, he said at the first 2 junctions, there was no problem. Those are, in fact, the ones I flagged up, which have a reasonably good view. The third junction that we come across on that particular stretch, I pointed out was the view was blocked. From the perspective of what's coming the other way. So we couldn't see if a vehicle was about to turn in front of us, and there was a wall blocking the view. And I slowed down, and in fact, the driver was just starting to turn across my path, and he hit the brakes, and I was able to pass him without any problem. What happened to my correspondent? Well, he said at this particular junction, the 4x4 actually pulled across his path, but luckily he needed to take no action. And then we go a little bit further down the road, and we come across a junction on the near side. Again, good view, no problem there, and then a crossroads. And the view to this isn't fantastic. It's not bad, but we do come across it without the driver having much warning we're approaching, particularly if we're actually approaching over the speed limit, which is 30 there. And he said, I approached this crossroads and thought there'll be a sorry mate situation. And there it was, the white car pulling out from the right, which is exactly what happened to me. He said, I slowed and just laughed, thinking, what are the odds of that? The rest of his ride was grateful, uneventful, he said, but funny old world, he commented. Yeah, okay, so there we go. Have a look at the video and watch it for yourself, and you can see my response to a near Smidsy. And if I'm perfectly honest, the one thing I forgot was to sound the horn. Right, so coming towards the end of today's show, so I'll just move into a quick update on my plans for 2022. Now, here's what's likely to happen. I don't guarantee it will, but likely is the answer. Now, first things first, my general drift away from Facebook for my creative material will continue. I won't be abandoning Facebook altogether, but the Tips on Tuesday and Skills on Saturday articles will be dual posted. I've been doing that for a couple of months now, and the response has been reasonably favourable. I'm still getting obviously a lot more views on Facebook than I am on KOFI, but hopefully people will start to move over to KOFI, as there are some advantages. First of all, they'll be published first on KOFI. They'll go out later in the day on Facebook. Some of the posts on KOFI are enhanced, or will be enhanced. The editor over there makes it possible for me not just use text styles like bold and italic and bullet points, which is incredibly useful, but it also allows me to place photos, diagrams, and even YouTube videos actually in line in the text, which makes it a lot easier to position those to where they're relevant to the text, whereas on Facebook they're just like linked into the same piece of text. You have to work out where they fit. And the other thing KOFI can do is it allows me to embed links on each page, multiple links, whereas Facebook really doesn't like you clicking away from their platform. Those articles will remain free, as I have said before, for 60 days. The big advantage of KOFI is that you can become a follower on my page there. All you got to do is literally click a button and enter your email address, and you will get an update direct to your email box every time there's something new to see. Now, that's a big advantage because, of course, with Facebook, I have to rely on their impenetrable algorithms popping my articles up on your timeline. And secondly, for those articles to be visible on your timeline when you actually log in yourself to see what's happening on Facebook. Alternatively, you have to make a conscious decision to visit my Facebook page to see what I've written. Now, I know many people do that, but you can, of course, do that on the KOFI page much more easily. You just need to bookmark the relevant page. So don't forget, if you are wondering what KOFI is, here's the link that'll take you straight to it. Secondly, I will be continuing to build content on both pages, but specifically I'll be adding to the archive on KOFI. Now, that means I'll be getting the 2020 posts online as the year goes by, and that'll complete the set from 2014 to 2021. And that makes basically 8 full years of Tips on Tuesday and Skills on Saturday articles. So with approximately 100 posts each year, you can do the maths yourself. And that content is available to all supporters. There is some free content scattered throughout the 800 articles, which you can read for naught. But if you want to access the rest, you can get a month's access for just £3. And if you can find a bigger archive of riding articles anywhere on the internet for free, or for less than £3 a month, do let me know. I'd be interested to see it. And of course, if you want to contribute a regular payment, then you become a subscriber, and I will continue to fill out the subscriber content. I'll be adding posts from Science of Being Seen and the Focus on Friday series. And of course, I'll also put some more one-off technical content and occasional updates from my other series like Myth-Busting Mondays on Facebook. My third priority with KOFI is to revamp the DIY training section. Now, since I created it, I have to admit that KOFI have added some extra tools, which means I can now improve it fairly dramatically. And of course, I do also have now over 60 of my 60-second safety videos. And it occurs to me that many of those will make an excellent base for a series of lessons based around the key messages in each video. So look out for a complete overhaul of that section sometime during the year. Now, I'll also be focusing on online coaching. I still think this is a way forward for many riders. We do like to learn out on our bikes. We like riding our bikes. It's great to get out there on two wheels and enjoy the sunshine on a day like today. But then there are days when it's not so nice to ride a bike, and that is a good day for doing some online learning. So as well as the one-off online sessions, which are one-to-one, I'll be planning a series of inexpensive pre-recorded lessons on particular topics. I've no idea of the timescale on that, but keep an eye open for announcements. On-road training. Now, just over a month ago, I was looking forward to reopening in the spring when COVID was far less of a concern. Typically, of course, we all got a nasty shock with the new Omicron variant. So the events over the last 4 or 5 weeks have proven me rather too optimistic with that planning. But hopefully, once the Omicron peak is past, on-road training can next year, or this year now, of course, return to something more like normal. Now, I will continue to be running my training from my usual locations, so that's northwest and southeast London on the north and south circular roads. Southeast London one is actually surprisingly close to much of Kent, and I'll also be running courses from my Herts, Bucks, Surrey and Essex start points around the M25, and from time to time I'll be starting courses in Oxfordshire too, so that'll hopefully pull in people from further west and the Midlands. Now, as a response to COVID, you'll probably know that I moved briefings and debriefings online and shortened the practical session to avoid having to stop at cafes for lunch. Now, if things do improve as we go forward through the year, and with more and more people being vaccinated, I very much hope that's the case. I'll be looking at my options to bring back the lunch stop and make the online, the on-road training session a little bit longer again. We'll be mixing, matching online and on-road though. I also hope to reinstate my on-tour training sessions. Now, these are more relaxed trips where we head off towards a scenic destination. I've got some lovely roads in mid-Wales, which I use, for example. And those are for a mix of training and recreational riding. We normally do a morning's training and then the morning's recreational riding with no training content. I'll obviously have to stop and talk about issues if they crop up, but it's basically a more relaxed way to do a bit of training. We usually include a 1 or 2 nights stopover on these days out too. So more on that in another show. And finally, what's your job? Well, your job is to help spread the word. I'm here. I'm here. So your job is to tell other people I'm here and hopefully get people to know a little bit more about survival skills. So that's pretty much it for today. I'll just wind down with a couple of reminders. First things first, don't forget that the gift vouchers are still available. They are on sale till the end of February, and you can find them in my coffee shop. There's a post giving you some details on what they're all about and how to buy them here. I've just got a comment from Samantha, who asks, will I be coming to Devon? I very much hope so, Samantha. That is the plan. There is the plan to make at least one trip to Devon this year. So yeah, I will keep in touch with you. Do memory jog me. I do tend to forget things like this, but do drop me a line at intervals if you don't hear things. I'll be putting some dates into the diary, hopefully in about March. That's the usual time I start trying to plan this kind of thing. So yes, Devon is a definite, well, as definite as anything can be in this modern age. Don't forget the date for the diary for the webcast tonight, and the next one, as I mentioned, is Science of Being Seen. That'll be Wednesday, 2nd of February. So do look out for that one too. And as I said, that'll be alternating. The in-depth look at one particular issue will be alternating with the full SOBS presentation. So the next full SOBS presentation would be April, and there'll be another topic in March. Right, so that is pretty much it for today. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, puzzles, anything you want to ask about, do drop me a line and I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in. See you on Sunday. And if you're riding this week, take it easy out there and stay shiny side up.